I'm the kind of girl who can sit and stare at a map for hours. I love the names on maps, the places they portray. So I was immediately drawn to this piece of silk that had a map drawn on it, and I bought it, and the chap selling it had no idea what it was. I looked into it a bit more and realised it had the military marks on it, it had restricted written on it, and I started to realise that what I'd got was an escape and evasion map. These were maps that were given to our troops to hide inside their uniforms, to help them escape from enemy territory in World War II and then beyond into the Cold War as well. I just really fell in love with the whole story and was chatting to a friend of mine who said he knew where there were a lot more of these. They'd been in army stores for years and they were going to be pulped. So I went and bought the lot. My husband, he said, "What are you going to do with them?" And I just said, "I have no idea, but I can't bear the thought that they will be lost, because then the story is lost." So that's how Homefront Vintage started. In World War II, the British Army had a military intelligence unit called MI9. And there was this quite eccentric ex-army officer, Clayton Hutton, that worked in that unit. He came up with this idea of escape aids, so that if our airmen were shot down behind enemy territory or were captured, then they had some way of escaping. He was actually walking along Charing Cross Road in London and came across one of the second-hand bookshops, and there were lots of stories of how people escaped in World War I. And so, being quite an ingenious chap, he got hold of lots and lots of World War I escape stories. And in story after story, the reason that our troops got back from World War I was that they had some kind of map on them. He then thought of printing maps onto some kind of fabric that could be hidden inside our troops' uniforms. So he came up with the idea of silk because it's very durable, it doesn't disintegrate in water, it can be folded up really small, so small scraps of map could be hidden inside a uniform. He managed to procure some parachute silk. I believe there was some kind of incentive in forms of homemade jam or marmalade that he managed to persuade the silk makers to give him some of the parachute silk. And he got these maps printed and started to develop ways of getting them to our troops. I think I do feel some kind of responsibility for what I'm doing. I am cataloguing the maps that I come across. Whenever I come across a map that is pristine or a map that I haven't found before, then I keep that for my own private collection. I also get in touch with some of the military museums to make sure that it isn't something that other people haven't seen before. So I think the maps are very precious. They are pieces of our history, but thousands of them were printed. Many are already damaged, so I can use the panels that are undamaged to make them into something new. I think often when we look at a map, it's because we're going somewhere. We're going on holiday, we're going on a trip, it's something quite exciting. The thing about these maps is that they're not really about the place that they depict. The maps are about trying to find your way home. And there's something really powerful about that, I think. I have some letters that were written during the Second World War, an ephemera that I'm starting to incorporate into some of the work that I do that helps tell some of the stories. This idea of a sense of place and finding your way home and staying found. That's what I'm starting to explore now. Being able to make them into something that's relevant, that people want in their home, that they want to love, that they want to tell people about, then that's the real value of them. You know, for me, this is about us remembering the past. It's about somebody wearing a brooch or carrying one of the notebooks and a friend saying, "Oh, I really like that, where did you get that from?" And then retelling this story because the story's incredible. I'm often asked, what will happen when you run out? And the answer is, that will be it. I will never reprint them because it's not about reprinting them for me. It's about that history and retelling that story.